cultures share. And so a lot of the traditions that we have that are Pennsylvania Dutch have similar corollaries. I'll tell you a good example. This is pretty funny. So a friend of mine from Schuylkill County, he's a dyed-in-the-wool Pennsylvania Dutchman, speaks Pennsylvania Dutch every day, has his primary language, not because of any reason other than he's stubborn, but he's a fabulous writer as well in Pennsylvania Dutch, a really stellar guy, from up in Higgins. And he told me that when he was younger, his grandparents told him that when you butcher chickens, you should take some of the chicken dung and make a cross on the ground over top of where you're going to put the stump to cut the chickens' heads off, because making that little cross was going to keep the chickens from flopping around after you cut their heads off. And he thought this was just hilarious. And of course he did it, and he said it worked, but he also just thought he thought of it as humor, because of course there's a lot of scatological humor in the Pennsylvania Dutch culture. But the funny thing was, that tradition also shows up in Southern California, New Mexico, and other areas where there was a Roman Catholic tradition. And what you're also going to find is, I'll show you one example in particular. John Steinbeck writes about this tradition when he's talking about Southern California indigenous communities that also practice Roman Catholicism. So this particular ritual is very likely something that actually comes from early Roman Catholic practice in Europe and diffused through many different cultures. And you're going to find a wide variety of different things. In the line of the scatological, I'll share another rhyme. So this is interesting. There's a culturally specific way to deal with when a child falls down and skins their knee. Oftentimes what you're going to do is you'll take the child aside to soothe them, and you'll say, "Haley, Haley, Hinkeldreck, this Maria free on all is spec." And if you want to get performative about it, you'll wave your hand over it. Now this, I would argue, is in imitation of powwowing. It may not be a true way of powwowing, but I do know some people who believe that it is, so I'm not going to tell them not. I think of it more as a little bit of a humor thing. But the interesting thing is, it's probably yes and, probably not either or. But the interesting thing about this particular rhyme goes something like this. Haley, Haley, Hinkeldreck means either holy, holy, chicken dirt or chicken dung, or you could also say healing, healing chicken dung, because the word for healing and the word for holy are actually pretty similar, and depending on how the person is saying it, could be one or the other. We say Hela in Pennsylvania Dutch for healing, but we say Haley for holy or highly. There's a couple different ways it could be said. So it could have both of those meanings. It would be holy, holy chicken dirt. By tomorrow morning, it'll all be gone. And this is a common thing that you do. And the kids don't necessarily understand what you're saying, but it is considered a culturally specific form of care. Now, what's really fascinating is I came across a rhyme in one of my daughter's books at home in Spanish, and my Spanish is terrible. I'm going to try it, but and if anybody here happens to know it and can say it better than I can, it's sana, sana, colita de rana, si no sanas hoy, sanaras mañana. It means holy, holy frog's butt, by tomorrow it'll all be gone. And it's the same thing that you say when a child skins their knee in Pennsylvania Dutch. It's the frog instead of the chicken dirt, but you can see both cultures have this tradition. So just another example of how Pennsylvania Dutch culture is not unique in this way. And in fact, you're going to find cultures all throughout the world, all throughout the Americas, are not only sharing traditions, but they also have common sources, common roots. And that's a really important thing to consider.